Hello, my name is host Eric, and I'm the host of Talking with Famous People, and I am here with Nande. And we're talking about emotions, and we're talking about Johnny Lamberg's question and comment about the ENTP and his difficulty understanding what it is exactly an emotion is. And Johnny Lamberg asked the question, is it a feeling about sensations? Indicating that he's an ENTP, clearly. That he's having so much difficulty understanding what FI is. So I asked Nande to chime in on this, and she has some thoughts.
Okay, so it says an emotion is a complex psychological state that involves three distinct components: a subjective experience, a physiological response, and a behavioral or expressive response. So he was kind of getting on to something, but I guess like emotions aren't necessarily caused by sensations. Like
Can you give me the
sensation is a
three things
small part
again?
of an
Can
emotion.
you read those three
Huh?
things again? What are the three things again?
Uh-huh. Um, a subjective experience, a physiological response, and a behavioral or expressive response.
What's the subjective experience part mean?
Um, so I guess like it has to do with you and how you're viewing something, a subjective perspective as opposed to an objective expression. Uh, or whatever I was trying to
But
say.
okay, but see, here's the thing.
Because you can't really
I get
experience
that. I
emotions
understand
from an objective perspective.
from a
Like emotions
subjective,
are what you're feeling.
but here, listen, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I get the physiological response part. That so if something if it's like there's going to be a fight, you get a rush of adrenaline, and there's probably some other thing that happens when you get other emotions like that too. That's some other chemical or whatever. I get the behavioral response part. That part I understand fine. Laughing, crying, whatever. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But the subjective experience part, first of all, if there's a behavioral response that is consistent with an emotion, then it suggests the emotion is something specific. That would make it more than just subjective experience. It would make it an I think, like for example, oh, I'm subjective. If I'm subjectively experiencing hilarity, I'm not going to be behaviorally crying, right? So
Polarity?
hilarity. Somebody makes a funny
Oh,
joke, okay,
oh, okay.
and I'm
Yeah.
subjectively experiencing hilarity and think to myself, ha ha ha, this is funny. My physiological response and my behavioral response are going to coordinate with that, right?
Yeah.
And we know that it's possible to fake it so that you're trying to make the behavioral response look as though you have a physiological response and a experience, a self identification of it. But that would be faking it, which means there definitely
But
is a real objective emotion that's not
but then it
faking.
wouldn't be considered an emotion, right? Because emotion has to have a subjective experience. So like fear, you're feeling it subjectively, and your physiological response might be like heightened, um, like like more blood rush or like your heart's beating more, and then you might like avoid things that make you feel scared. Like
Okay,
that's an
well,
actual emotion. But if you're trying to fake it, then it's probably not a real emotion.
okay,
So
well,
it can't
so
be classified as such.
all right, fine, right. Well, that's okay. So good on the semantics thing here. We need to nail down semantics a little bit, which is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying. The difference between subjective and objective is it's not subject to right and wrong. But in fact, if we can make a distinction between an actual emotion and a imitation of an emotion, then it's possible to imitate an emotion one's not feeling. It's possible to imitate an emotion that's opposite of what one's feeling, presumably. And if that's the case, then it's clearly not subjective in the sense that it's not subject to right and wrong, because in fact it is subject to right and wrong. We can say that is a true emotion and that is not a true emotion.
Okay.
So then that's why I'm having a problem with the subjective experience part. Even if it's something you experience, if it is subject to right and wrong, it's either subject to right and wrong, in which case it's got some manner of objectivity, or it's not, in which case it's not possible to talk about it meaningfully.
I'm not following.
Okay, Hami, any thoughts on that? I'm not following either because I'm kind of lost.
Hey, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What were you guys talking about?
We're talking about FI and trying to understand what it is. So, Johnny Lamberg, a commenter, asked, are emotions just feelings about sensations? I think it said, or are feelings just emotions about sensations, or something like that? It's a weird question. And I'm trying to figure out if, well, then Nande read this thing that said, an emotion is three things. It's got three parts to it: subjective experience, physiological response, and behavioral response. And I was saying, I get the behavioral response, and I understand what the physiological response is, that, when you feel that rush of adrenaline or something. But those things have got to be about something. So how can it be about a subjective experience if it's about something concrete, and you can apply sort of notions of he is displaying an emotion other than he feels. Then we can say that an emotion is true or false. And then if that's the case, it's not really a subjective experience.
Wait, wouldn't that just be FI though?
Yeah, I know, but I want to know what it is. Like, I want to know. Like Johnny said, well, is it a feeling about a sensation? And I said, well, that's a weird, meaningless question somehow. I'm not sure why, and so I asked Nanda, and she said it was those three things: subjective experience, physiological response, and behavioral response. My point is, if the behavioral response and physiological response are reflexive, then the emotion is either real or not. And if it's real or true or
Yeah.
distinct in some way, then it's not subjective.
Wouldn't it be subjective in the sense that it's on an individual case basis?
Well, I mean, it's non-falsifiable, but I don't think all non-falsifiable things are subjective. Subjective is something like, this pizza is delicious, or this pizza kind of tastes eh. That's something that's subject to change. It's going to be dependent entirely on things like how hungry you are, and when you last had pizza, and how well the pizza's made, and lots of things like that. That's subjective, right? You can't be said that that's wrong or right to say that the pizza tastes good. You can be said to be wrong or right about, I feel sad. I've experienced emotions where I thought I felt one thing and then realized later that I felt a different word that was expressive of some distinction that I hadn't been aware of before.
I don't know. Like, for me personally, I would just say FI is feeling regardless of whether the group or society thinks a certain way. I would say.
Does anybody else have my experience of not of often having this very, very delayed response between a thing happening and experiencing an emotion about it, or at least consciously experiencing an emotion about it, and that the thing that makes that happen is to come up with a sentence or a set of words that expresses the emotion in its most crystallized form. And the example I've given before is, I remember a very distinct moment when I came up with the sentence, she abandoned me when I needed her most. It's not objectively true. It doesn't hold any TI water, but it expressed my emotion most precisely. Even though that emotion that I was feeling of being abandoned when I needed it most, of this sort of a combo of abandoned trail, but betrandonment. Betrandonment. I felt an experience of betrandonment. And But it wasn't objective. It didn't make any sense, right? My explanations, when I looked at that sentence and tried to parse it out and say, okay, well, does this sentence hold water? Is that really what happened? It's not really what happened. So I would say, but I think it's a more accurate description of my emotion than any other description of my emotion. That's why it took until I came up with a sentence. She abandoned me when I needed her most, until I felt betrayment.
Yeah, I don't relate to that.
Homie doesn't relate to that. How about you, Nande?
I don't think so.
I would say that I have somewhat of a similar experience in that I always know if something happens, I always know how I feel about it. But the feelings are faded though. So I'll feel it for like a certain amount of time, and then it will just go away.
Nande or Leah? Leah, I said your name properly. Can you? That means you need to turn on your microphone. Nande, any thoughts?
I guess when I feel emotions, they're not really. Well, okay. Sometimes I feel emotions and I'm not really sure why I'm feeling them. And so I just kind of think about them. Sometimes they're just in reaction to what other people are feeling. Sometimes, like, I have to go back and think about, why I was feeling this emotion. Or it'll just kind of, like, come to me about why I was feeling it. And I'll be like, oh, that's why I felt this way at this time. But I don't really, realize my emotions through words. Oh, wait. I guess sometimes I do. I don't know if that's the same thing, though. Like, sometimes I talk out loud to, like, work through my emotions. And sometimes that way I can figure out what I'm feeling.
Huh.
Is that the same thing?
I mean, I think that's a good idea. I think that is similar,
Okay.
very similar, but it's not something I thought of ever trying before exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, when does it occur to you that there's something there to figure out?
Generally I'll have like this unsettling feeling in my stomach, and I'll know something is off. And so I'll try and like work through how things are going in my day, or like how things have been going, and then eventually I'll come across the problem.
I wonder if I were to like schedule a time of my day where I said, okay, Eric, this time of day, you're going to spend 5 minutes reflecting upon how you feel right now, emotionally. How do I feel right now? Let me see.
This is completely foreign to me.
I don't.
Wait, so like you guys don't know how like you guys feel about things?
I'm trying
I
to
don't know
figure
if I
out.
would say that, but like sometimes I'm unsure of the reason why I feel a certain way.
Nanda, you're INTP, right?
No, I'm INFJ.
Oh. Well, that means it's a 6 slot thing for you, right? So
Yeah.
you're gonna
Still strong though.
You're gonna be very
Supposedly
strong
I'm supposed
at
to
it.
be able
It's
to
not
be very good at
conscious.
that.
You're gonna have a very different experience with that than me. For me, when I'm trying to figure out what I feel right now. Okay, do you guys believe you have emotions right now?
I'm not really feeling a whole lot right now. I'm just kind of here.
Right, Effie, you're waiting to feed off of other people's emotions. Maybe you're managing us by checking to make sure that we're emotionally sound and happy you're here and stuff. And
Yeah,
you're
pretty
probably
much.
making judgments about understanding fundamentally, like looking at Eric and going, "There's that flaw right there." But being so INFJ that you're not going to ever mention it out loud, but you might, if the opportunity arises, you might nudge a little here or there to try to influence my behavior in a positive way. Right? But Javi, do you think you have emotions right now? Or are you in sit around and wait for someone else's emotion to cue you?
Like someone else's emotions never cue anything. Like I know how I feel like right now, like at all. I know I feel like at all moments.
How do you feel right now?
Pretty good. So,
That's a nice feeling.
Pretty good. Um,
yeah.
you're such an INTJ, dude.
The thing is that, like, I wouldn't, like, the thing with INTJs is that we're not emotional at all. I mean, we are emotional, but compared to like an INFJ, like we're pretty cold, but we always know how we feel about things.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. External warmth is not the same thing as emotion. I think, I think
Yeah.
maybe it's possible that FE experiences emotions like this. Like right now, I'm experiencing good emotions because I'm talking with you guys, and it seems to be going pretty well. Hey, these people are here. They haven't said fuck you and left yet. Things are going along pretty well. You know, is that an
And
emotion?
the
I
thing
don't
is
know.
like, the thing is like, I had, because I'm an INTJ, like I kind of in a way despise and don't see the point of FE at all.
Right. Well, of course you don't, because it's your seventh function, right?
Like I see the use of it, but like in the real world, and I can use it if I want to, in order to get something that I want. But
Uh, are you
I like whenever
sure?
someone using, yeah,
Here's the thing,
but
though. For non-FE
it's like a
users, when
learned
they try to use
behavior.
FE, I don't think they. It's. I don't know. Go ahead. Explain it to me. I want to hear it.
Like I wouldn't say that it's natural. It's more of a learned behavior. So like my dad's a dominant FE user, so I'll see how I notice how he uses it, and then I mimic that.
Right. Uh, and
And also,
you seem more FE than a lot of INTJs. You're further along in that path than a lot of INTJs.
yeah, that's why actually I was confused whether I was an INTP or an INTJ for a while.
You're an INTJ. There's no doubt about that.
And the thing is, whenever someone's using FE, I can usually see right through it for some reason, but I can't like use it like naturally though.
So then, does that annoy you when you see uh, FE being used in that fashion?
Yeah, because like for me, it's just get to the point already.
All right. So here's what I'm hearing from you. I'm hearing that you are able to spot FE dance when somebody's doing unnecessary attending to social stuff in order to manage the emotions of others and make sure that they don't feel. I hope you don't get the notion that I did this thing right here. I didn't mean it like that. A bunch of like disclaimery shit, right?
Yeah,
That's what you identify primarily as FE. And so you're like, I hate FE because it's a waste of time. You don't need to use the disclaimers. I'm not going to get offended because I'm an INTJ and I'm very difficult to offend. And and just get on with it already. You're kind of lying. You're kind of being deceptive here, right? But what I don't think you quite understand the same way that I don't understand your feelings is that I'm doing FE shit constantly. This whole conversation is FE shit. And the fact that I'm on point and moving quickly is because I'm concerned that my audience members in general are going to find it annoying if I waste time doing a bunch of FE dance disclaimer shit. If I thought that's what my audience really wanted to see, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be sitting up here doing a 5-minute video of me making disclaimers about what I didn't mean and I hope you didn't get the wrong idea and yada yada yada, right? So I think that
yeah.
just as I don't understand the subtleties of my own emotions at all, I don't think you understand the subtleties of FE at all.
I would
Thoughts?
agree.
Leah, can I get you to turn on that mic and say a few words like um, state your opinion on grilled cheese sandwiches or something? Okay, Nande, thoughts?
Um, I kind of don't understand the point of FE either, but it's something that I do because I guess that because I'm an INFJ, I'm assuming. Um, I can't really control it, and I'm not doing it to be superficial. It's more something that I just do instinctively.
Would you say
Like I'm
this?
always just paying attention.
Would you agree with this sentence? I can't help it, but I always know when anyone's making any kind of social mistake.
Probably. It depends on what it is, though. What would you define as a social mistake?
Well, I think the INFJ sees individuals as whole, complete, or incomplete, developing somewhere along those spectrums in accordance with how cleanly their identity manifests in the big model that the INFJ has in their head about how social interactions ought to be. And I think INFJs understand humans as fitting into a role in their respective relationships and they see the fulfillment of those relational identities as the individual's primary duty in the world.
That seems about right.
And it doesn't cause a lot of conflict with the ENTPs, which is why we tend to get along. We have a different perspective ENTPs do, but it's not exclusive of that at all. It's complementary to that. The only problem runs afoul is if we conflict at the biggest picture level. And it's my position that INFJs have a bad habit of knowing for certain a false predicted future or a potential predicted future that I can make false still, right? In other words, you guys tend to be pretty sure about your predictions, but you underestimate my ability to break everything.
The funny thing too is that, like, even though I don't value fee, I still like envy people that can use it. Like,
Right.
sometimes I wish I could use it, cause like I have a bad habit of not even knowing how people feel about me in general. Like, it doesn't even occur to my mind.
Well, but see, that's kind of a nice, agreeable blind area to be in, right? Because neither do you know how they feel particularly about you, nor do you particularly care, provided whatever their feelings are allows them to be predictable to you in terms of how they're going to behave with you, and you can reliably assume they're going to be fair and decent and expect the same in return. And you guys sort of a straight ahead kind of understanding of how people ought to be with each other, and it shouldn't involve anything more complicated than that. So that's kind of a nice
Yeah.
blind area to have, because the alternative, I also frequently don't understand exactly how people feel about me, but I understand how people are feeling in the moment if I'm attending to it right now. So I, in this circumstance, for example, if I'm not going to ask Leah. I'm not going to ask Leah again to turn on her microphone because that would be one too many times, right? It's a social thing, it's an FE thing, and it would come across as me pushing on her too hard on the video. However, now that I've met it up about it, I've loosened that thing up. See, this is the thing the INFJ doesn't understand, is the INFJ will instinctively know Eric shouldn't ask her again to turn on her mic, because that'd be being too pushy. And this NI derived truth is correct, and their clarity on FE things makes it for certain the right course of action to take. But they don't account for the fact that I'm going to hang a lantern on it, meta up, and blow shit up. So then if I wanted to, I could. In fact, now it's necessary to make the joke for me to say, hey, Leah, you want to turn on your mic again? And the INFJ can't anticipate that whole phenomenon occurring, right? So they're 100% true and actual and realized and correct conclusions are notoriously and probably only incorrect when they're about ENTPs, or maybe INTPs, but INTPs have this SE problem, right? They've got their 7 things SE, so INTPs need a catalyst to get them to move.
But you're still able to use it though, right?
INTPs?
I thought you were talking about ENTPs.
No, INTPs need a catalyst to be able to move because they have SE in the 7th. So like I have to push on Zachary a lot to get him to upload videos. He wants to sit there and hum and haw over it and make it all perfect and shit like that, you know? And I'm just like, just
Yeah.
fucking throw some shit up there, dude. And so my job as ENTP and quadrumate for the INTP, one of my big jobs in life is to be an activator for INTPs. And I'm happy to do that because I love INTPs and they get along well with me, and um, you know, we work well together. And I like to feel as though I'm being helpful, being kind of, since FE is my third thing, my aspirational, motivational, my payoff slot. It really means a lot to me to feel like I'm being helpful, and to feel like I'm being helpful in a way that genuinely pleases some other person without, like, I want to win on their FI. I don't want to win on their FE. I don't need to see them display that they're happy, but I want my FE to be deft enough to determine, to see cues that they're deeply happy about something that they're not making actively visible to me necessarily on purpose, right? That's the ideal outcome, I think.
Can INFJs do that?
I think that INFJs want to see, they think that there's a final and perfect form of a human being, of each human being. They want to see each human being manifest that final and perfect form of themselves. And they do help a lot. In fact, they probably help. They help directly way more than the ENTP does. The ENTP is much more likely to help indirectly, or sneakily, or manipulatively. INFJ is much more um, conscious of that and cautious in general. The INFJ has the comfort of sitting back and existing with other human beings, knowing they have the clearest understanding of the holistic truths of those interhuman relationships of anybody in the room. And I think they like ENTP because they know that their truths aren't supreme over our ability to break shit.
Do you guys find that as FE users, you guys easily empathize with someone in a certain situation, even if you've never been in that situation?
Yeah, because we're empathizing with their emotions, not with their situation.
Yeah.
Because like for me, it's the opposite. Like unless I've been through that experience, like I don't know, I can't really empathize with the person.
Right, well, I mean,
So
lots of things make me cry that I've never had any sort of familiarity with, but one thing that makes me cry a lot, and it has nothing to do with me. See, when media makes me cry, I'm not thinking, oh, that's just like my feeling. I'm like, oh, that's where my feelings are, out there. There they are. They're on the TV screen. They're in that story about um, that one team that was the big underdog that beat that other team that was the big team. That would make me. Those stories always make me cry. It made me cry when I was director of the big juggernaut Evil Empire program. That I've joked before. I wanted to name my debate school Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai No Mercy Debate Dojo. I want to be the bad guy team. That's what I identify with. I identify with being the juggernaut coach that everybody hates. But what makes me cry and makes me go, oh, that's the most beautiful story in the world, is the story about the underdog team rising up and beating the big guy. I don't know. Sports Center when I had TV, Sports Center made me cry all the time. That's like the one show that would make me cry more than any kind of inspirational story of somebody overcoming challenges and shit like that.
Like for me, I feel emotions like very strongly, but I never cry though. Unless it's like something serious.
That's so strange. I To say that you feel emotions strongly is the same thing as to say that you're crying about them to me.
I don't think so. I mean, you can feel strong emotions and not cry, because like crying isn't like you don't cry when you're feeling really, really. Well, sometimes you do, but
Okay, no, I'm not
Wouldn't
saying
crying
all
just
strong
be
emotions are crying. I'm not saying all strong, but let's say it's sadness. To feel sadness strongly is to be crying, in my mind.
yeah.
Because I think the
But I mean,
tears
that's not
happen.
like the only emotion.
I think the tears happen before my awareness of the emotion happens.
You just
wouldn't
kind of
crying just be an
react
expression
first.
of those emotions?
Say again?
Wouldn't crying just be an form of expression of those emotions?
Right, but see, that's the
And
problem.
it could be,
What are they
and it
expressing?
could be expressed in different ways.
But see, this is the problem, though. I don't understand what they're expressing. I understand what the expression is, but I don't understand what they're expressing. Because, look, for example, here's an example of something that made me just fall apart. I got home from nationals. I was sitting there. I was looking at a video that I made about our Nats competition, and Edmund had left a comment on there saying, "This is my fault that we lost. I did a bad impact calculus in the final speech. That's why we lost this." And I just burst into tears, and I don't even know what emotion that is. What emotion is that? It's not sadness. I understand that he's being noble and being smart and not trying to blame external stuff. He's having a good internal locus of control. That's what he's doing. He's demonstrating a good internal locus of control. Why should that make me burst into tears? What emotion am I feeling? It's not.
I don't think it's just one single emotion. It's probably a lot of different emotions that culminate into that one expression of all of those emotions. So like sadness and disappointment and other things that I can't describe in one word.
Yeah, maybe there was disappointment. I don't know. All right. Well, but is it possible to break it down? Can I take that emotional pie and deconstruct it into its ingredients and serve it as a gourmet meal? It's deconstructed cherry pie. It's flour, a cherry, a little pile of sugar. It's $42. Here you go.
Of course you can. I mean, it might take some time, but that's harder to do, I think.
Is there any point in it?
Um,
Is there any point in knowing which emotions make up the reason I cried when I read that comment? Why I couldn't even. I had to do two takes of video to be a video in which I was crying, not so much that I could be actually understood still. And it wasn't like I was. I nixed the first one because, I don't want to. I'm crying too much. It was because I was crying so much that I couldn't successfully get out what I wanted to say.
Or it
So,
could just be
okay,
low FI.
low FI. What do you mean?
Yeah, cause like, for me, like if I was crying, I would know why I'm crying for. What emotions am I like? What emotions I'm feeling and stuff like that.
So you'd know what prompted it, the thing that you read that prompted it, but you'd also be able
Yeah,
to deconstruct what those feelings were about or something. Because
yeah, like what
I know
caused
what
it and
prompted it, but I
why.
don't know what it's about. It
yeah, that's
can't
how
be
I feel,
it can't be
Eric.
about that. It can't be about the fact that Edmund did something noble. That's good. Good job, Edmund. Good job being smart and noble. Why should I burst into tears? Makes no sense. But the point is there a reason to know those things? Is there a reason to know why? What does that do for me?
Maybe it helps you understand yourself better, for if you have those reactions in at other times.
Well, let's say.
And it
Maybe
helps
you'd
you like overcome.
understand then why it's happening.
Okay, so be able to understand next time better. That's one good reason. That's a solid warrant. I like that. Homie, you were saying something?
It helps you like overcome that feeling or emotion.
It helps you overcome it. What does it mean to overcome
So
it?
if you understand why you're crying and why you feel a certain way, then that feeling, once you reconcile with that feeling, then it goes away. Well, that's how at least it works for me.
Oh, I don't know about that actually.
But I think it goes away right away anyway. No matter what I do, it goes away. I mean, after I was done making the video, I said, let's see what else is going on. You know? I don't expect to be still crying 5 minutes from then. I don't know why I was crying in the first place, so why would I be continuing to cry? It is so strange as I deconstruct this to understand how badly I understand my own emotions. I understand them so badly that for 40 years at least, I never had any idea that I didn't understand my emotions well. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, how well do you understand your own emotions? I would have said, perfectly. I understand them perfectly. What's there to understand? They're easy. That's how completely blind I am. Like somebody says, how well do you see that elephant over there? And I've learned that a black shape of blindness is an elephant, right? And I go, well, I see it perfectly. Same elephant I've seen my whole life. It's right there. It's that big black square. Eric,
It could
that's
also
not
be
an
that
elephant.
like in society, emotion is viewed through an FE lens. So like if you were to ask me like a couple of years ago before I discovered MBTI, if I understand my emotions well, I probably would have said no.
Right.
Because like in society, you're expected to express your emotions, and that's supposed to be like emotional stability and stuff like that. Is viewed as that.
Right. That understanding emotions means not really experiencing them very much. Because or at least
Yeah,
not letting your experience of them influence others or affect others in some way. If somebody is, I think of somebody who is like uh, going through a breakup and burdening everybody with like, oh, I need to spend time with my friends because I've lost my significant other. The normal shit that people do when you break up. I do too. Everybody does. I think of those people as being in a tough time when they don't understand their emotions because they're experiencing them. That's not what that means, Eric. That means they're understanding their emotions right now, or something. I don't know, or experiencing them. You know, or is that's the problem? There's no difference between understanding your emotions and experiencing them. That's the fucking problem. You can't do anything.
Maybe not for you though.
Okay, well, but see, if somebody else can understand them, then I can understand them too. I want to understand them because, but I don't understand what you even use it for. What do you do with it once you understand it? And you say, well, you understand yourself better. But I understand what better? If it's not something I can do anything with. And
Maybe
Ahami
it's not
says,
for you to do something with though. It's just to know.
yeah. Like I don't view it that way. It just is what it is.
okay, I'll have to
Like
look at that.
for me, like emotions, like there's no utility to it. I'm just feeling a certain way because I'm feeling a certain way.
That sounds
Well,
kind of annoying.
yeah, it does to me too. But I will say this: my INFJ friend, he's asked me this question on a number of occasions before. He's curious about it. I'm curious about it too. But I think it's revelatory of something beyond just the question itself, which is he says he doesn't get and wants to understand better my obsession with productivity. Because I'm kind of obsessed with, well, how can we make this 5 minutes do more, or something like that, or useful, or how can I finish something right now? Have a finished thing now that's a piece of work that I can say, there, I did something. He wants to know why what he calls my obsession with productivity. Um, what are your guys' thoughts about productivity and how it might relate to emotions and stuff?
I actually think that like you'll understand FI better if you think about it the same way you think about TI. Like for TI users, like I assume that utility doesn't really matter.
Right, it doesn't matter.
So like this thing about FI as emotions that have no utility to it.
If I can explain why utility doesn't matter in TI, that's the difference. But of course, that's because it's TI. TI allows you to TI provides the illusion of finality that non-TI methods of judgment don't allow. But I get what you're saying. It's a wise point. Any other thoughts on this subject before I end this video? Leah, this is your call.
Wait, what was your question before that?
I don't know. I just said
Something to do
Definitely
with
with
productivity and how they relate to emotions.
Oh yeah, what between what and relates to emotions?
Productivity.
Productivity, right? So, am I obsessed with productivity because the thing that has no utility for me is also the least productive thing from a societal standpoint of understanding productivity?
Yeah, because it's extroverted function, I'd say. I feel like extroverted functions in general are concerned with utility and like the use of it, while introverted functions aren't.
Good point. I like that. I was thinking if SI violated that or not, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's kind of iffy on SI.
I actually think the same thing too.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know I want to have my space orderly, but I think I really want to have it orderly not for outcome reasons, because it's how it ought to be. Interesting. Any other thoughts before we end this one? Leah. Leah. It's the ghost of Christmas future calling you. This is your last chance to make a auditory impact on this past, which will be manifest into a time object shortly. I find I have a hard time. Let me read what she says in the chat. She said something. See, INFJ, you were wrong the whole time. You assumed I was gonna fuck that Leah thing up entirely, huh?
No, I was just I didn't really care.
I know. I'm joking with you. Joking.
Uh-huh.
I find I have a hard time relating to others' emotions and being able to comfort them from that standpoint. But if they were crying, I will cry also. Comforting people. Yeah, I have trouble comforting people too. I want to provide them solutions. Oh, you're crying? Let me fix the problem that caused you to cry. But
Yeah, I'm
that's
not very
often,
good at comforting people either.
that's often not what people
Yeah, me
want.
too.
They don't necessarily want you to fix anything. They just want
Yeah.
to commiserate.
I feel like I should try and at least help them fix it. And I know like it's not my place to try and like fix the problem that they're experiencing. But I also feel
For me,
badly
it's
that
like
they're
not about
feeling it.
like for me, it's not about fixing it. Like I just want them to stop because like it makes me uncomfortable when people are crying.
I think I want them to stop too, but I think my way of trying to get them to stop is to fix it, right? I used to have this problem with my ex-wife constantly, where she would express Eric, I have expectations and I have complaints. And this is she was saying things like, I feel this, I feel that, I feel the other thing. But what I was hearing from her, and the only thing that she was really doing was saying, Eric, complain, complain. Expect, expect. Expect, expect, complain, complain. Right? That's all she was doing. She was changing between those two words. This is what I expect, this is why I'm complaining. And so I would say, okay, well, look, you have an expectation. How can we structure things such that that expectation can better be met? First, I would say this. The first thing I would say is, okay, well, is that expectation justified? Let's do some analysis on whether the expectation you're voicing that I should fulfill is a just expectation for you to have. She didn't want to have that happen. She doesn't want to parse her expectations. And the second thing I'd say after conceding, okay, fine, let's see how we can fulfill that expectation then in a way that's mutually satisfactory. Well, she didn't want mutually satisfactory sort of answers for things that sort of met her expressed needs, because her expressed needs had nothing to do with her real need. Her real need was compliance, basically. She wanted me to buy into her worldview and behave accordingly. And my directing compromise was exactly contrary to her worldview. So, we were kind of fucked. But if we started that whole thing over again, I think I could make a good marriage out of it, a successful marriage out of it. But
Yeah, that's actually my problem. Like when dealing with other people's emotions, I always try to think about it logically and try to understand it on a logical basis. But that's not how emotions work.
right. But the problem we have in society is this: when 95% of the time, when somebody comes up to you and says, like in my marriage, when she comes up to me and says, Eric, I'm hurt, and you're to blame for it. There's always this I'm experiencing emotions, and there's a blame to be affixed. The problem is then they people justify their emotions with TI, and they say, and the reason I'm right to feel this way is because I had expectation A, and that's justified expectation, and you had behavior B, and that was not in coordination with expectation A, and therefore I'm right to feel this way. Except that bit of reasoning there that people do all the time almost always completely falls apart, right? So she was really, really upset because I carried my little red book into this wedding so I could doodle while the ceremony was going on. She saw this as appalling, incredibly unacceptable behavior, and and insisted that this justified her. This was the last straw, she said. But of course, her actual reasoning was nothing to do with her emotion, which was I need to get out of this fucking marriage. And so when I parsed it, it would just look like she was being stunningly petty, right? Just stunningly, mind-blowingly petty. And it caused a lot of conflict between us because obviously one normally doesn't think that one gets divorced over my refusal to leave this little red book in the car when I go into a wedding ceremony. But that
Yeah,
was the
I
thing that
relate so
kicked me.
much to that.
So I just wish that I'd love for us to come up with understandings that better cause people to say words that mean what they mean. Instead of saying I feel sad and you're to blame, they say I feel sad. I know that there's no logically consistent reason for me to feel that way, but this is the picture. Is it this one? Yeah, I think it's this one. I think this is the picture that cost me my marriage. How dare you draw that picture, Eric? How dare you? It's not a very good picture. Well, if you would divorce me for a bad picture, I'd understand that. That would make sense to me. I'm not a very good drawer. But it's the social stuff. Nobody fucking cares. Nobody was sitting there going, oh, did you see him? He's totally doing the wedding. Everybody else is on their fucking phones. Everyone's on their fucking phones, right? But that's okay because everyone's on their phones. It's not okay for me to have this because I'm the only one with a little red book with a big E on it. Fucking crazy. It makes me mad when I think about it. But anyway, the point is, it wasn't really about that. Is the point? That's what happens when you get an FE Dom trying to use TI to explain herself. They can't explain themselves. It's ridiculous to think that they're going to give you a logical explanation for why they're so upset about something crazy they're upset about. So anyway. That's that. Any other thoughts before we go?
Wait, do you think it's
Go ahead.
do you think it's FE that cause people to try to make people fit certain expectations, or it's just an extroverted function in general?
I think it's only two extroverted ones. Extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking do that because their judgment functions in the external world. So, but extroverted feeling is the carrot version, and extroverted thinking is the stick. It's how we move other agents. Those two things are how we move other agents around. So I influence your behavior by being likable, primarily. Even INTJ, look, I'm doing such a good job with my FE, homie, for this population that even an INTJ is going to like me, even though I'm using the thing he hates most to get him to like me, FE, right? You'd say, well,
Yep.
you're not really using that to get me to like you, Eric. You're providing good and insightful conversation and actually meaningful discussion about models and interesting things. Is probably what you'd say. But I think if I were to do it very clumsily and the reason I'm not doing it so clumsily is because of FE, not because I want my model to be clean and tidy. You'd probably present something in a super economic use of language, right? If you had a theory you wanted to present, it would take, here's my 2-minute video in which I explain it all in the most simple, obvious, and straightforward terms. It require no additional parsing, thank you very much, NETI. I'd rather you not sit here and parse the shit out of this meaninglessly. But, we like to parse the shit out of stuff meaninglessly. So, and then we like to get lost mid-sentence like that, so we have no idea what the fuck we're talking about anymore. That's the point of FE for me as an ENTP is basically it drives how I do shit such that other people will like me. It takes a long time for the ENTP to figure this out at all. I mean, we're so hit and miss, right? Early on in life, we'll make somebody like us, and then we'll assume that's supposed to stay. Now, that's okay. That person's done. I've turned that person color blue from green to blue. Okay, now let's go. And we just assume that they're going to stay blue, right? Or they're going to stay green. Then we realize, oh, you got to kind of be aware of this on an ongoing basis. That people aren't objects; they change over time when you're not looking. Any last thoughts? Thank you for watching Talking with Famous People.